I'm Paul Van Squike, your martial arts guide, and this is Topic Tuesday, but let's call it Wisdom Wednesday this week because I'm recording and releasing on a Wednesday. If you're new around here, the concept is simple. People leave me comments in the YouTube comments section. I print them out on a piece of paper, and we discuss them. It's just me talking to the camera, kind of like a podcast, so if you want to listen instead of watch, I will not be offended. There's a winter storm coming. Plug this phone into your car and listen to the conversation while you slowly and safely commute to work in the storm. All right, let's jump into our topics. Our first topic comes from Lyndon King 2476, who writes, how has Taekwondo or martial arts in general improved your life? What are some lessons that you took directly from your training that you think facilitated your growth as a man? What guideposts would you like to impart on those who are about to begin their journey in the martial arts? First, thank you for calling me a man. I do have a son. That counts for something. That's an important part of being a man, is having a child. However, I don't change my own oil. So I don't know if I count as a man just yet. Martial arts definitely has helped shape me as a person, though. I started at the age of 15, and before I had started training in the martial arts, I was living just for entertainment. I went to school, but apart from that, all I did was play video games and watch movies. It's a pretty common thing if you live in the United States or another pampered Western country like the United States. We can so easily get lost in the world of fantasy. We can live vicariously through the superhero characters in the movies and the action heroes that we control in the video games. We basically have created a drug for the spirit. We get a dopamine hit that feels like success, that feels like achievement, when in fact we have not achieved anything. This is what martial arts helped break me out of, because I think this type of living was toxic for me. And I have more on that in my video about how Taekwondo saved me. I really delve into that. Taekwondo, for the first time, showed me how necessary time, dedication, and perseverance are to building a skill. That you cannot achieve something of value without those pieces. It requires those things. It's not handed to you on a platter. It's not a drug that can be injected in you instantaneously. It takes years of dedication and practice to achieve. Now that is a lesson that you can carry with you for the rest of your life and apply to everything else that's important, your career, your relationships, your spirituality. That it requires dedication, hard work, and perseverance. That's something that I think we find value in when it comes to youth sports, when it comes to martial arts. It's one of the reasons we emphasize these practices for children, is it helps them understand this concept, especially in a world where we are so easily able to escape reality. We are so easily able to divorce ourselves from what is true. Not a lot of farmers out there who don't have a TV or video games. They're working their third world farm somewhere. Not a lot of those people are divorced from reality in the way that we are here. So that definitely has its values. Then, of course, there's the general values we all talk about in the martial arts, the fitness, the health and fitness, the command that one achieves over the self. And when I say that, you strengthen your higher self's control over the desires of your lower self. When your lower self is saying, give up, your higher self learns to overcome that. When your lower self is saying, I'll practice tomorrow, your higher self learns to overcome that. Then, of course, there's the skill set itself. I do think there is value in knowing at least something about how to physically protect yourself, and being involved in the martial arts helps with that. Especially as a man, there's something to be said about the confidence you gain just knowing what it's like to get hit, to get grabbed, to get thrown, all of these things that we encounter in the martial arts, knowing what that feels like, knowing how to engage with that, gives you a confidence that you wouldn't otherwise have. And it also breaks you of your power fantasy illusions that you're good at fighting. Probably helps you avoid violence from that perspective. So there's a lot of good things about the martial arts, or youth sports in general, which I think promote a lot of the same ideas. Now, from a Christian perspective, if we're not approaching these things correctly, they can have just as many pitfalls. And so I will share with you some pitfalls that came from my own misunderstandings when it comes to martial arts training, and hopefully through my mistakes you can learn something to avoid yourself, or if you see someone else falling into one of the same problem patterns, you can maybe help coach them through it. In the modern world, we follow a very Nietzschean sort of philosophy when it comes to our engagement in sports and martial arts. Nietzsche, I'm not German. I might be saying his name incorrectly. He's a German philosopher from the 19th century. Most of you have probably heard of the guy. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Gain strength through adversity. There's nothing wrong with that aspect of his philosophy, but where we run into power, Freudian slip, where we run into problems is the will to power concept that he so vigorously espouses. This is the idea that if you become strong enough, if you challenge yourself enough, that you can exact your will on everyone else around you, and that that's the best thing that you could do. That you must achieve the highest level of power you can possibly achieve so that you can exact your dominance upon others. This is very much a Greco-Roman pagan type of idea. This is the idea that came crashing down with Christianity, with the birth of Christianity. Now, that doesn't mean it vanished. We fight with it every day. It was not gone in the Middle Ages, but it was not the dominant philosophy. I think it has come back to be the dominant philosophy of the secular age again. That you should pursue something for yourself. It's all about you and what you want. A coach will ask you, what do you want? Like a life coach, a business coach, what do you want? How much do you want to make? How well do you want to do in this sport? What medals do you want to win? Right? And the problem with that from a Christian perspective is we are taking God completely out of the equation, because the question should be, what does God want for me? How can I use these things to live in a way that is in accordance with God's will, which is often to serve others? How does this help me serve others? How does this help me crush my vices so that I can live more in tune with God's will? When you approach martial arts or sports from that perspective, not the perspective of your own pride, then goodness gracious, does the whole thing change. So if you were to ask me until pretty darn recently why I was doing martial arts, I could give you some rhetoric that sounded nice, but in reality, the reason that I was doing it is I saw someone perform a skill set that I admired and I wanted that thing for myself. It was about seeing something, wanting it, and trying to get it. For some, it's the honor that comes with winning, the prestige of winning, the medal, the pride that your family gives you, the community support, especially with things like school sports. You become the hero of the town. But if we're talking about why we should actually practice something like competition or building a skill, it needs to be about aligning ourselves with God's will. That's from a Christian perspective. So how does that change things? The martial arts, youth sports, these can teach us to properly control ourselves so that we can channel our passions correctly and keep ourselves aligned with God. We can also use the lessons that we learned and teach them to the next generation. We can use the training to help make others better. Then, of course, there's the whole skill set and health advantage. If you're healthier, if you're stronger, you can be of better service to others. If you know about protecting yourself, you can help protect others. You can protect your family. You can teach others to protect themselves. So there's an aspect of martial arts training that is certainly in alignment with serving others. You can definitely use these things to good effect. You just got to watch out for the pride stuff. That's the big thing. That's my big warning. Watch out for the pride stuff. Don't do it for the wrong reasons. Next topic comes from Ronald Velvis, who says, "Hey, Paul, excited for my tournament this weekend. I will use all the advice and plenty of your content here to come out on top with my kid. I wish I had asked for types of meals or energy, anything, since it will be a long day. We will be doing individual forms, board breaking, sparring, and family forms. I will try my best to come up with my own stuff, but maybe you could give some input as to what works best regarding meals, snacks, drinks, supplements, etc. Take care as always." That is a long day. That's a lot of events you have stacked there. If you really want a challenge, fast. Don't eat anything. That would make it extra hard and make your victory all the more meaningful. You'll have taught yourself to persevere through the lack of energy and come up against even more difficult odds. Honestly, nutrition is not my forte. I can't give you advice on nutrition. My perspective would be not to get too hung up on all the little extra levers you can adjust to help you achieve victory. Remember, the reason for competition is the refinement of the self. Why go out there and do a form at all? It teaches you to stand confidently while others are watching, to present something while others are watching. It teaches you to overcome your fears, to gain control over your emotions in a situation that makes you emotional. When you have to go out and perform, you get emotional. And you have to bring in your reason, your ordering force, and subdue those emotions, channel those emotions, and then move through the performance. Now, if you go to a competition with the intent of doing that and you botch it, you freeze up on your form, or you do the wrong move at the wrong time, does that make you a worse person? No, you're just practicing Taekwondo. It's part of the practice. It'd be like saying you're a worse person because somebody kicked you in a sparring match, or because you missed a target when you were trying to kick it in class. Competition is part of the overall practice of self-refinement. Why do sparring? Again, you're going to be confronting some extreme emotions. You now have an incredible opportunity to learn to control and channel those emotions. These are the reasons. These are the reasons to compete. Now, I'm not saying don't aim at the victory. Certainly, we don't want to go out and perform lackadaisically because we don't care whether we win or lose. That doesn't mean don't try. That doesn't mean don't give effort. What it means is view the competition as a practice, as part of your overall practice, not as a result. Then you're doing it the right way. You're a winner. I finally understood what a winner is and what a loser is. Because in our world, a winner is someone who has achieved some form of tangible success, whether it be the first place podium win, whether it be the financial, I'm going to use the word success, whether it be developing financial wealth, getting the coolest car, all these things that we associate with success. None of those are success. Success is simple. Success is one thing. Success is aligning yourself with God's will and following it. That's the Christian perspective. And wherever that leads you, as long as you're doing that one thing, you are successful. So if you are approaching this tournament with the idea that it's there as part of an overall practice to make you a better person, then you are winning. That's why we do these things. Again, aim for the top. Try to win. Try to win. That's part of it. But don't worry so much about it that you're trying to decide if X energy bar is better than Y energy bar. Now, obviously, if you are a professional athlete, these things matter. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't get nutrition advice. Certainly get nutrition advice. I'm just saying that it's so easy to get distracted on what truly matters in our practice, which is the martial arts. From Silly Boy 1226, I'm trying to figure out how to kick. I keep being told I need to relax more, but my natural movement is to flex everything and power strike my punches and kicks. I'm told I need to think more like using a whip in my kicks. Could you explain more in depth how I can achieve that? I feel like my strikes are very weak when I'm not powering through them. That's a really good question. It definitely feels to us like we're being more powerful when we flex our muscles. But often when we flex our muscles, we're actually hitting the brakes and we lose out on power. And even if we don't lose out on power, we definitely lose out on efficiency. We're wasting energy. So, this is tricky because you can make the shape of a technique. You can make the perfect shape of a technique, but you still might be missing the what's going on inside the body aspect, the internal elements of what's going on when you do a technique. The body's an interesting thing. Our bones are rigid, they're not flexible, but pretty much everything else in our body has flexibility and give to it. And so we're playing a game of what do I need to make rigid when I hit something so that I can channel energy into that object and not injure myself? And what do I need to keep loose so that I'm efficient and so that I'm not hitting the brakes on my movements? So you think about if you want to push something, you have to put a lot of rigidity into your body, right? 'Cause you can't be the one who gives. So you have to become a more sturdy structure than the thing that you're pushing. If you put your arms up but you have nothing structuring your arms, you can't push something because you collapse on impact. So you need a lot of structure for pushing. Striking isn't necessarily pushing, though. That's where we get into this whip concept. Because striking is transferring a snapping type of energy. You can think of it this way. If I would hate to get hit by a car that's going 20 miles an hour, but if we dangle a board on a string and hit it with a car going 20 miles an hour, it's probably not going to break that board. You need to have a snapping force to break a board, not a pushing force. So a car is totally rigid. There's no whipping quality to a car hit, and obviously you get something going fast enough, you're going to have devastation because there's so much mass too. But our bodies, we want to accelerate in a way that has that snapping quality to it, not just a rigid quality where you get a pushing effect. So that's where we use the analogy of whip your body, turn it into a whip. Now, I think the only way that you can figure this out is just by playing with it, because it's pretty well impossible to explain how you structure your body internally so that you achieve this. Because all you can see is the external form of the technique. So what I would do if I were you is get a heavy bag and just start playing. Okay? And note mentally how you're structuring your body each time you hit the target. And note the effect in the target. Now remember, we don't want to just look at the wobble of the heavy bag, because we can just push it and achieve that. I can walk up and push it with my hands in a way that wouldn't hurt anybody and make it wobble. So we want to, yes, look at the displacement, but also note the sound. Note the feeling of impact on it with your foot. And just keep playing. Play with how relaxed can I be and whip my leg and get that power effect on the heavy bag. Where do I need to still hold structure in my body so that I can transfer that force efficiently, but also transfer it in a way that doesn't hurt my body and allows me to actually input the force? It takes a lot of just playful practice. Use a heavy bag. That's what they're great for. Just play with your kicks, play with your punches. Try to understand the line between too much structure and not being structured enough, because it's a tug of war between those two things. Good question, silly boy. Our next question comes from Lyndon King, who writes, while journaling this morning, I thought about how much of my martial arts training centered on arts with forms in them. As the years went by and I moved to different places for work, I naturally gravitated to arts with forms. I tried boxing and Muay Thai here and there, and I liked them, but I didn't love them. But I always went to arts like karate, kempo, or taekwondo. Then I thought that forms, kata, were the common denominator. In many cases, forms serve no value in these systems other than ways to fill out curriculum, even though it was always said that the forms are what the heart of the system, where the heart of the system lies. In my entry, I asked myself if I was brainwashed or conditioned to seeking arts with forms, because that was what was comfortable to me. The thought of doing a form detox appeared to me. Maybe I should go back to arts that do not have forms and really focus on them, get outside of my comfort zone. Have you ever thought the same things, and how did you work through it? That's such an interesting question. And first, I commend you for questioning and challenging your paradigm. That kind of internal, that introspection is something that many could afford to do more of. So I applaud that. Well done. Let's define a form first in terms of function. We could get into a lot of different reasons to do a form. But let's just talk about function. So we've got the solo form, and the function for that is strength and coordination. You're teaching your body how to move in a martial way, and you're strengthening it for that. You've got the intellectual component, which is giving yourself ideas of what you can do to someone and what you can do to protect yourself from someone. So a form will give you ideas on how to hit or hurt someone, and ideas on how to block, redirect, dodge, receive someone's attack against you. Often if we come to the martial arts, we have no ideas, no preconsisting ideas of all the different ways that we can hurt someone or that we can dodge, block, receive. So the form serves as a a story in a way for how to accomplish these things. It's not saying this is the only way, it's saying these are some ways we can do this. You're also getting the strength and conditioning and the coordination training. So you're getting those things. That's a solo form. Partner forms are the same thing. Partner form could be just a sequence you do back and forth with a partner where you're still gaining the strength and coordination components and you're gaining the intellectual understanding of how you can either defend or attack someone. And then there's the forms that you would do on targets. So boxing and Muay Thai absolutely have forms. They're done with pads. Everybody has pad combinations, different things that instructors like to teach with the pads that you'll see regularly. Those are forms. These are all ways of achieving the same thing. They give you ideas, how to use your body to hit someone, and coordinating and strengthening your body to do that, or how to protect yourself. Those things are all contained within the forms. From a functional standpoint, we need more than that. So if your goal is function, that's where you get into drilling and sparring, and this is where we add in the dynamic, unpredictable nature of things. So if you only do the forms, you'll gain the things we talked about, but you won't plug it into the unconscious part of your mind that allows you to actually use those skills or that knowledge under duress. You need it in the fast part of your mind, the unconscious part of your mind. And that only happens when you're doing the live training stuff. So if you do want to functionalize, you have to add in at least drilling that has variables to it, unpredictable elements, resistance elements. Just as one example, if you're trying to get good at using a rear leg kick to score on someone in an Olympic sparring context, rear leg roundhouse kick, have one person just try to block and dodge you, and all you're doing is rear leg roundhouse kicks. That's a real simple way of using it against someone who doesn't want you to use it. You can add in other kicks too. Okay, I can feint with this kick and then use the roundhouse kick. Anything you want to play with. But you're adding in a resistance element. You're making yourself take it out of the realm of theory and plug it into reality. You need that. You need some of that. So yes, if function is the goal, then you need to do some of those things. But if you're doing this stuff for recreation, recreation, meaning that you have a life, job, family, things that are very important, and you need to recreate yourself so that you can come back to those things and fully engage in those things, that might be what martial arts is for you. It might be recreational. And if that's what it is, do whatever fulfills that need. If forms are fun for you, if they're recreational for you, if they help recreate you so you can go back to the important parts of your life with renewed energy, then that's probably what you spend your time doing. And there's nothing wrong, of course, with liking forms and doing forms. It all depends on the goals. So I think that would be something to ask yourself. Doing what we like because it recreates us is not a problem at all. So you're talking about, this idea of detoxing from the forms. If you're using them as recreation, then I don't think that's necessary. Never bad to get outside of your comfort zone, though. If I ever thought those things. Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. You hear people who are fans of the ecological approach, which has a lot of good stuff in there, regardless of whether or not you're using forms. And you ask questions like, do we even need these things? What would it look like if I just used an ecological approach? It's definitely thoughts that have crossed my mind. But I find personally that you have to have structured components to a system in order to move other people through it in any kind of numbers. That's just been my observation over the years. So I'm a big fan of having unchanging elements and dynamic elements, drills and sparring, and fusing those two things together. I think a lot of people just have no way no understanding of how to move their body, how to structure their body, or no understanding of how they can block, dodge, or hit someone. They have none of this stuff. And purely using an ecological approach just doesn't seem like the best route for a lot of people. Again, if you have a bunch of athletes, some really talented athletes, that probably works really well. But if you've got just regular people coming in off the street, I've never done it long term. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure there's lots of studies that say I'm wrong. But definitely short term, that kind of stuff just frustrates people a lot. And there's a lot I could be doing wrong, right? I could be structuring the drills, making them too complicated. But I find you got to give people some ideas first. You got to give them some basic coordination first, some basic fitness first, and then they're more receptive to the live training elements. So I don't know, maybe a tangent based on what you were asking, but cool thought. Thanks for sharing. From Daryl, for the next episode, and considering winter is now here with the changing elements, would you like to comment on any funny stories heard or even the positive outcome or reasoning of training in the elements? We've all seen those clips of wearing a dobak or gi out in the snow with the bare feet, and even Karate Kid was out kicking waves at the beach. Maybe some stories from previous masters. Hope all is well. I never did the winter training stuff as part of the Taekwondo training or Tangsudo training, but it was part of Aikido training. I never did it myself. The dojo I was part of did it. I just couldn't make those times a lot of time. I could only come to their morning or afternoon classes because I was teaching in the evening, so I didn't make a lot of these sessions. But they would do Kangekko training, which is their winter training, and it's about experiencing hardship and renewing your spirit, basically. They do it at the beginning of the year a lot of times, and you subject yourself to cold, and from like a Shinto and I think Buddhist perspective, it helps you to cleanse yourself and renew your spirit by subjecting yourself to such hardship that you allow the ego to die. So it's a spiritual practice, and that's why I think it's associated with a lot of the Budo arts, where function is not the only goal, where the sharpening and perfecting of character is the goal. They will often incorporate elements like this in Japanese culture-based martial arts, these winter training type of things. Kangekko is what we called it. And then there's Masubi, I believe it's called. That's like the cold waterfalls and all that kind of stuff. Interesting ideas, actually kind of similar to what a lot of traditional Christian practices look like, in that they subject themselves to a deliberate discomfort or lack of pleasure to help overcome the ego, to overcome their pride, to overcome some of the vices that are attached to the various thing they're depriving themselves of. I am attending an Orthodox church regularly, Greek Orthodox, and they're very big on fasting, for example, of removing the pleasure of food from your life in ways that make living a little bit more demanding, so that you detach from the vices, so that you help develop your self-control. Interesting practices that are very similar, I think, to the idea of Kangekko as well. So interesting thought there, Daryl. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for your participation in Topic Tuesday or Wisdom Wednesday. Until next time, enjoy your training.